You know what we do with stray dogs on this plane? We put them in a cage.
That's what Craig Whitmore said while slamming the airplane bathroom
Open this door!
with Priscilla Adams still inside. Then he clicked the lock shut.
You're insane! Let me out!
Shh. Sit. Stay. Good girl. Sorry, sweetheart. Animals flying cargo, not first class. Be grateful I gave you a room with plumbing. Don't worry, folks. I've contained the situation.
Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. 12 people watched a woman get caged like a dog at 30,000 feet. Because the woman behind that door? She was about to make one phone call. And when she did, Craig wouldn't just lose his little gold wings. He'd lose everything. Let me take you back to the beginning. 6 hours before that bathroom door slammed shut. Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, 5:47 in the morning. The kind of early where the sky hasn't decided if it's night or day yet. Terminal B smelled like burnt coffee and floor wax. Gate agents were still yawning behind their counters. Somewhere down the hall, a janitor's mop squeaked across tile in a slow, tired rhythm. Priscilla Adams sat alone at a small cafe table near gate B12. She wore a navy blazer, simple gold earrings, and no makeup worth noticing. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. If you walked past her, you'd think she was just another Monday morning traveler trying to survive a 6 a.m. flight. But she wasn't. 6 weeks ago, Priscilla Adams was named Chief Operations Officer of Skyline Atlantic Airlines, the first black woman to ever hold that title in the company's 40-year history. The announcement hadn't gone public yet. The board wanted to wait until a press conference in Washington, D.C. later that week, which meant today, on flight SA-1164 from Dallas to D.C., nobody on that plane knew who she was. And that was the whole point. See, Priscilla didn't get to the top by sitting in boardrooms. She started at 22 as a flight attendant for a regional carrier, pushing beverage carts, smiling through turbulence, cleaning vomit off armrests at 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve. She worked every position between that beverage cart and the corner office. Gate agent, crew scheduler, operations manager, VP of customer experience. 20 years of climbing, and she never once forgot what the view looked like from the bottom. So when the board offered her the COO seat, she had one condition. Before any press conference, before any announcement, she wanted to fly one of her own airline's routes. Undercover. No badge, no title, just a regular ticket and a pair of eyes. A quality audit. Old school. She sipped her coffee and scrolled through a checklist on her tablet. Cabin cleanliness, crew professionalism, boarding efficiency, service tone. She had 14 categories and a scoring rubric she built herself. Her phone buzzed. A photo from her daughter, a college freshman at Howard University. A selfie in a library with the caption, "Up early too, Mom. We're both crazy." Priscilla smiled. She typed back, "Get some sleep, baby. One of us should be sane." She finished her coffee, tossed the cup, and walked toward gate B12. Flight SA-1164 was a narrow-body jet, about 160 seats. First class up front, 8 rows. Economy behind the curtain. The boarding area was filling up, suits with rolling briefcases, a young military officer in uniform, 2 families with kids already melting down. Priscilla boarded in the first-class group, seat 3A, window. And that's where she first saw him. Craig Whitmore, senior flight attendant, 18 years with Skyline Atlantic. Tall, broad-shouldered, mid-50s, with a jaw like a cinder block and a smile that only activated for certain passengers. Watch him work the cabin. A white businessman in row 1 got a handshake and a warm, "Welcome aboard, sir." A white couple in row 2 got champagne offered before they even sat down. Craig called them by name. He joked about the weather. He adjusted their overhead bins personally. Then Priscilla walked in. The smile vanished. His eyes went to her face first, then her clothes, then her carry-on, scanning her like a receipt he didn't trust. No greeting, no eye contact. He stepped aside just enough to let her pass, like she was furniture being moved through a doorway. That was the first sign. Behind the galley curtain, a younger flight attendant named Denise Lawson noticed it too. Denise was late 20s, assigned to economy, but passing through first class to grab supplies. She saw the way Craig's entire body language changed when Priscilla appeared. The warmth drained out of him like someone pulled a plug. Denise didn't say anything. Not yet. She was new enough to know the rules. Craig ran first class like his personal kingdom. You didn't challenge him. You didn't question him. You kept your head down, did your job, and hoped he didn't notice you. 6 formal complaints had been filed against Craig in the past 4 years, all from passengers of color, all buried by a now retired supervisor named Harold Dunn, Craig's golf buddy and personal shield. On paper, Craig Whitmore had a spotless record. In reality, he was a ticking bomb with a badge and a smile. And Priscilla Adams just walked straight into the blast zone. The plane was still at the gate, engines off. That low electrical hum you hear when the auxiliary power is running, like the whole aircraft is holding its breath. Priscilla settled into 3A. She tucked her carry-on overhead, pulled out her tablet, and buckled her seatbelt. Quiet, unassuming. Just another passenger getting comfortable. She didn't get 2 minutes of peace. Craig appeared at her row like a shadow with a clipboard. He didn't crouch down the way flight attendants do when they want to be polite. He stood over her, full height, arms folded across his chest, that clipboard pressed against his rib cage like a weapon. "Ma'am, there's been a seat reassignment. I need you to relocate to economy." Priscilla looked up. "Excuse me?" "Crew rest protocol. This seat's been flagged for operational use. You'll need to move to the back." She kept her voice level. "I booked this seat. I have a confirmed boarding pass, 3A. And I'm telling you the seat's been reassigned. It's not a request. Now here's the thing. The man sitting 1 seat over, 3B, was a white guy in a gray polo who boarded after Priscilla. Craig hadn't said a single word to him. Not about reassignment, not about crew rest, not about moving. That man got a smile and "Can I grab you a drink before we push back?" Priscilla noticed. Of course she noticed. "Is the gentleman in 3B also being reassigned?" she asked. Craig's jaw tightened. Just a flicker. Just enough. "That's not your concern, ma'am." "It is if only one of us is being asked to move." Silence. The kind that fills a cabin like smoke. Craig exhaled through his nose. Slow. Controlled. He uncrossed his arms, tucked the clipboard under his elbow, and leaned down, just close enough that the passengers behind them couldn't hear. "I'm going to say this once. Move to the back of the plane, or I will have you escorted off. Your choice." Priscilla didn't blink. "I'd like to speak with the captain. If this seat has been officially reassigned, the captain can confirm that." Something shifted behind Craig's eyes. A crack in the armor. He wasn't used to pushback, not from passengers. Certainly not from passengers who looked like her. He straightened up, tugged the bottom of his vest, and walked away without another word. Priscilla stayed in 3A. She didn't touch her tablet. She sat still, hands in her lap, watching the cabin the way she used to watch it 20 years ago from the other side of the beverage cart. She knew what just happened. She also knew it wasn't over. She was right. 15 minutes later, Craig came back. Different angle this time. He walked up with purpose, stopped at her row, and pointed at the overhead bin above her seat. "Ma'am, I observed you place an item in this bin that I need to inspect." Priscilla frowned. "What item?" "A suspicious object. Cabin security compliance requires me to check." Suspicious how? That's for me to determine. Please step aside so I can access the bin. She didn't step aside, but she didn't block him either. She watched. Craig popped the overhead bin. He pulled out her carry-on, a black leather weekender, nothing unusual, and unzipped it right there in the aisle. He didn't use gloves. He didn't call another crew member to witness. He just started pulling things out. A folded scarf, a phone charger, a bag of almonds, a leather portfolio filled with documents, her audit paperwork, checklists, internal memos. Craig glanced at the portfolio for half a second. He didn't read it. He tossed it back into the bag like junk mail. Then he rummaged deeper. Toiletry kit, a paperback novel, a pair of reading glasses in a hard case. Nothing. Absolutely nothing suspicious. Because there was nothing to find. Craig zipped the bag shut, shoved it back overhead, and slammed the bin closed. He didn't say, sorry. He didn't say, all clear. He just turned and walked back to the galley like he'd completed a routine task. But look around the cabin for a second. Row 1, a white man with an identical black carry-on, untouched. Row 2, a white woman with an oversized handbag stuffed under the seat, uninspected. Row 4, another white passenger with a duffel bag that barely fit in the bin. Craig walked past every single one of them without a glance. The only bag searched in the entire first-class cabin belonged to the only black woman sitting in it. Across the aisle, a pair of eyes was locked on the whole scene. Eleanor Voss, seat 3C. White woman, mid-60s, silver hair cut sharp at the jaw. Retired civil rights attorney. 30 years of courtroom experience and a nose for injustice that hadn't dulled one bit since she hung up the briefcase. She'd been watching Craig since Priscilla boarded. Every glance, every shift in tone, every small cruelty he thought nobody noticed. Eleanor noticed all of it. She pulled out her phone, opened the camera, hit record. She didn't say a word. She just held the phone low against her lap and let it run. Meanwhile, a few rows back, the white businessman in 3B, the one Craig never asked to move, turned to his wife and whispered something. She shook her head slowly. They both looked at Priscilla with the kind of expression that says, "This is wrong," but doesn't actually do anything about it. Behind the galley curtain, Denise Lawson saw the aftermath. She came through first class to collect pre-departure drink orders and spotted Priscilla sitting rigid in her seat, jaw tight, hands gripping the armrests. The overhead bin above 3A was slightly crooked from being slammed. Denise leaned toward Craig at the galley counter. She kept her voice low. "Craig, did you just search your bag?" "Routine check." "That's not routine. That's not even protocol. We don't do individual bag inspections without—" "Stay in your section, Denise." He didn't look at her. He was polishing a champagne glass, holding it up to the light like a jeweler inspecting a diamond. "I've been doing this since before you graduated high school." Denise opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked back at Priscilla one more time before disappearing behind the curtain. Priscilla sat motionless, but her right hand moved slowly, deliberately, to her blazer pocket. She pulled out her phone. She opened the camera app. She set it to video. She placed the phone in her breast pocket with the lens pointing outward, just enough to see, just enough to catch. She was done being a passive observer. From this point on, everything Craig Whitmore did was being recorded. And he had no idea. Now let's talk about the bathroom, because what happened next is the reason you're watching this story. About 20 minutes before departure, Priscilla stood up. She needed to use the first-class lavatory before the seatbelt sign locked everyone down. Normal, routine, the kind of thing 100,000 passengers do every single day without incident. She walked 3 steps to the lavatory at the front of the cabin. She opened the door. She stepped inside. The door folded shut behind her. The space was tiny, 2.5 feet wide, maybe 4 feet deep. Fluorescent light buzzing overhead. the sharp smell of industrial sanitizer, a small mirror that reflected a woman who was already tired of this flight before it even started. She heard the lock click from outside. Not the inside lock, the outside one. The crew access lock, the one only flight attendants can operate. Then she heard his voice, muffled through the door. Calm, almost cheerful. "You know what we do with stray dogs on this plane? We put them in a cage." Priscilla's blood turned to ice. She grabbed the door handle. It didn't move. She pushed. Nothing. She banged with her palm, once, twice. "Open this door!" Craig patted the door from outside. 2 slow taps, like calming a kennel. "Shh, sit, stay. Good girl." The fluorescent light buzzed, the walls tightened. The hum of the auxiliary power unit filled the tiny room like a heartbeat that wasn't hers, and the clock started ticking. 1 minute passed. Priscilla pressed the call button inside the lavatory. The small orange light above the door flickered on. She heard the chime in the cabin, that soft, polite ding that's supposed to summon help. Nobody came. She pressed it again, and again, 3 times in 10 seconds. Each press harder than the last, her thumb whitening against the plastic button. Still nothing. Outside that door, Craig Whitmore was walking through first class with a pot of fresh coffee. Pouring for row 1, smiling at row 2, asking the man in 4A if he wanted cream or sugar. Casual, relaxed, like nothing in the world was wrong. The call light above the lavatory blinked steadily. He didn't look at it once. 2 minutes. Priscilla started banging, not tapping, banging. Open palm against the thin plastic door. The sound was sharp and hollow, like slapping a drum in a closet. It echoed through the forward cabin in short, ugly bursts. "Hello? Someone? I'm locked in here!" Her voice carried through the door, not screaming, not yet, but loud enough that the passengers in the first 3 rows could hear every word. A little girl in row 2 tugged her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, there's someone in the bathroom." The mother looked toward the lavatory door. She saw the out-of-order sign Craig had hung on it. She patted her daughter's hand. "It's just broken, sweetheart. Don't worry about it." The little girl looked back one more time. She wasn't convinced. 3 minutes. Priscilla's breathing changed. The lavatory was small, barely enough room to turn around. The fluorescent tube above the mirror hummed at a frequency that drilled into the back of her skull. The walls were beige plastic, scratched and smudged, closing in tighter with every second. The sanitizer smell burned the back of her throat. She could feel the heat of her own breath bouncing off the mirror and hitting her face. She pressed her forehead against the door. "I know someone can hear me. Please, open the door." Silence. 4 minutes. In the galley, Denise Lawson was stacking cups when she heard it, a muffled thud, then another. She paused, a plastic cup still in her hand, and looked toward the first-class lavatory. The out-of-order sign was taped across the door handle. That sign wasn't there 10 minutes ago. Denise turned to Craig, who was leaning against the galley counter, scrolling through his phone. "Craig, what happened to the forward lav?" "Maintenance flagged it. Leave it." "When? I was just up here and it was fine." Craig didn't look up from his phone. "I said leave it, Denise." Another thud from behind the door, then a voice, clear, unmistakable. "I'm locked in here. Someone locked me in." Denise's stomach dropped. She set the cup down and walked toward the lavatory. She could see the external lock engaged, the small metal tab pushed into the locked position. That wasn't a malfunction. Someone did that manually, and only crew had access. She turned back to Craig. This time, she didn't whisper. "Craig, there's a passenger locked in there. The external lock is engaged." Craig finally looked up, He locked his phone, slid it into his vest pocket, and crossed his arms. That woman was being disruptive. I secured the situation until airport police can meet us at the gate. It's handled.
Disruptive? Craig, she was sitting in her seat reading a tablet. I watched her.
You watched from economy. You don't know what happened in my cabin. Now go back to your section and do your job. I've been running first class since you were in middle school. Denise stood there. Her fingers trembled at her sides. She was new. Craig had seniority. 18 years of it. One bad report from him could stall her career for a decade. She knew the math. She knew the risk. But she also knew what she heard through that door. 5 minutes. Eleanor Voss had been sitting in 3C this entire time. Watching. Listening. Recording. She'd filmed the bag search. She'd filmed Craig hanging the out-of-order sign. She'd filmed the moment he clicked that lock. Her phone was still running, propped against her purse in the seat pocket, lens aimed at the lavatory door. Now she stood up.
Excuse me.
Eleanor's voice cut through the cabin like a gavel. 70 years old, 5'3", silver hair, and a courtroom tone that made grown attorneys flinch.
Why is there a woman locked in that bathroom?
Craig turned to her. His customer service smile snapped on like a light switch. Ma'am, please return to your seat. There is a minor security matter being handled by the crew.
I'm a retired attorney. I've been watching you harass that woman since she boarded. You searched her bag without protocol. You tried to remove her from her seat without cause. And now you've locked her in a lavatory. Open that door, right now.
The cabin went dead quiet. Every passenger in first class was watching. Craig didn't open the door. He adjusted his vest. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one more time to sit down, or I'll add your name to the incident report too.
Go ahead. I've read more incident reports than you've served peanuts.
6 minutes. A man in row 4 pulled out his phone, then a woman in row 1, then the military officer in row 5. One by one, screens lit up across first class. 6 phones. 7. 8. All recording. Craig noticed. His jaw tightened. His eyes darted from phone to phone like a trapped animal. 7 minutes. The cockpit door opened. Captain Roland Briggs stepped into the cabin. Late 50s, salt and pepper hair, a face built from 30 years of keeping calm at 39,000 feet. He'd heard the commotion through the cockpit door, raised voices, banging, the unmistakable sound of a crew situation spiraling. "What's going on here?" Briggs said. Not loud. He didn't need to be. Craig straightened up immediately. "Captain, I have a disruptive passenger secured in the forward lavatory. She was non-compliant, verbally aggressive, and I made the decision to contain the situation for cabin safety. I was about to request airport police." Briggs looked at the lavatory door. He could hear the banging. He looked at the out-of-order sign. He looked at the engaged external lock. Then he looked at Denise. "Lawson, your version." Denise swallowed. Her hands were still shaking, but she spoke.
Captain, that's not what happened. The passenger was calm the entire time. She was seated, reading, not bothering anyone. Craig tried to move her out of first class. He searched her bag without a second crew member present. And then he locked her in the lavatory while she was using it. I heard him make comments through the door.
"What kind of comments?" Denise hesitated. She looked at Craig. He was staring at her with an expression she'd never forget. Cold, sharp, a warning. She looked back at the captain.
He compared her to a dog, sir. He told her to sit and stay.
Briggs didn't react, not visibly, but if you watched his hands, you'd see his right fist close slowly at his side. "Open the door," he said. "Now." Craig reached for the lock. His fingers fumbled, twice, before the metal tab slid back.
The door folded open. Priscilla Adams stepped out. 8 minutes and 40 seconds. That's how long she was in there. The cabin was silent. Every eye on her. Phone cameras still rolling. The fluorescent galley light hit her face and you could see it. Her eyes were red, her forehead damp with sweat. But her back was straight. Her jaw was set. Her hands weren't shaking. She straightened her blazer. She looked at Craig, not with anger, not with tears, with the kind of calm that terrifies people who expected you to break. I want your full name, your employee ID, and I want the captain to file an incident report before this aircraft moves 1 inch. Craig's lip curled. Even now, even standing in front of the captain, surrounded by phones, caught dead to rights, he couldn't help himself. Lady, you're lucky I don't have you removed from this flight. Priscilla didn't flinch. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. Priscilla dialed a number. 1 number. The cabin went quiet enough to hear the ringtone through the speaker. Ted, it's Priscilla Adams. I'm on flight SA-1164 at gate B12. I need you to pull this flight immediately. Ground it. I'm initiating a full crew conduct review under Section 9 of our operations manual. Yes. Right now. She hung up. Craig stared at her. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. No words came out. But every single passenger in that cabin? They were about to find out exactly who Priscilla Adams was. 30 seconds after Priscilla hung up, Craig was still standing in the aisle with his mouth half open. His brain was running, but his legs weren't moving. He looked like a man who just heard a gunshot, but couldn't figure out where it came from. Who the hell is Ted? He muttered. Priscilla didn't answer. She slid her phone back into her blazer pocket and returned to seat 3A. She sat down, crossed her legs, and folded her hands in her lap. Calm. Still. Like a woman who just pressed a button and was now waiting for the explosion. She didn't have to wait long. 3 minutes later, the gate agent appeared at the aircraft's door. A young woman with a Skyline Atlantic lanyard and a face white as printer paper. She stepped into the cabin and went straight to Captain Briggs. She whispered something. Briggs leaned back. His eyebrows rose about half an inch, which, for a man who'd landed planes through thunderstorms, was the equivalent of screaming. He picked up the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I regret to inform you that flight SA-1164 has been canceled due to an internal operational matter. All passengers will be rebooked on the next available departure. We sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. The cabin erupted. Groans. Sighs. A businessman in row 1 threw his hands up. A mother in row 2 closed her eyes and whispered something to the ceiling. The military officer in row 5 just shook his head slowly. But Craig wasn't groaning. Craig was doing math. Bad math. The kind of math where every number adds up to an answer you don't want. He grabbed the gate agent by the elbow. Not hard, but hard enough. What's going on? Who authorized this? You can't cancel my flight. The gate agent pulled her arm free. She looked at Craig, then looked at Priscilla, then back at Craig. She did. She... what? That's Priscilla Adams, Craig. She's the new Chief Operations Officer of Skyline Atlantic Airlines. She said it matter-of-factly, like reading a weather report. Clear skies, 72 degrees, and your career is over. She's your boss. The words hit Craig like a truck doing 90 on an empty highway. His face went through 4 stages in about 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, denial, and then something deeper. The slow, sickening realization that every word he said in the last 30 minutes was recorded, witnessed, and spoken directly to the one person on Earth who could end him. He looked at Priscilla. She was already looking at him. Same seat, same posture, hands still folded.
No smirk, no victory dance. Just eye contact. Steady, unblinking. Absolute. The cabin rippled. Passengers who'd been groaning about the cancellation suddenly went quiet. The whisper spread from row to row like wildfire through dry grass. That's the COO? She runs the whole airline? He locked his own boss in the bathroom? Eleanor Voss, God bless that woman, let out a laugh so sharp it could cut glass. She looked at Craig and shook her head. Oh, sweetheart, you really don't know when to stop, do you? Craig took a step backward, then another. His heel caught the galley threshold and he stumbled, not enough to fall, but enough to look exactly as unsteady as he was. 2 airline security officers appeared at the aircraft door. Navy blazers, earpieces, stone faces. They weren't there for Priscilla. They walked past her row without a glance and stopped directly in front of Craig Whitmore. Sir, we need you to come with us. Craig's mouth was moving, but nothing useful was coming out. I've been here 18 years. Sir, now. Priscilla stood up. Not because she had to, because she had something to say. She turned to face the cabin. Every passenger, every phone still recording, every pair of eyes locked on her. I want to sincerely apologize to every person on this flight for the disruption to your travel. Each of you will be rebooked on the next departure and fully compensated. What happened on this aircraft today is not what this airline stands for. Not to me, not to anyone. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The cabin was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning cycling through the vents. A woman in row 4 started clapping. Then the man next to her. Then Eleanor. Then the military officer. Then the mother in row 2 whose little girl had heard the banging. One by one, the whole cabin joined. Craig Whitmore was escorted down the aisle through a tunnel of applause that wasn't for him. Every step, every row, passengers watching him walk the longest walk of his life, past the seats he used to rule, under the overhead bins he used to control, through the door of the plane he thought was his kingdom. As he passed Priscilla's row, he stopped. He turned to her. His voice cracked. I didn't know. You should have told me who you... Priscilla cut him off. 5 words. Quiet. Final. I shouldn't have had to. Craig opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Security took his arm and walked him off the plane. The door closed behind him. He never walked through one again. They put Craig in a windowless holding room on the ground floor of Terminal B. Gray walls, 1 table, 2 chairs, a security camera in the corner with a red light that never blinked off. He sat there for 45 minutes before anyone came in. 45 minutes of staring at that camera, picking at his cuticles, and listening to the low hum of the airport through the walls. Luggage carts rolling, intercom announcements, the distant roar of planes taking off without him. When the door finally opened, it wasn't a security guard. It was Ted Harmon, Vice President of Human Resources for Skyline Atlantic Airlines, 6'1", reading glasses on a chain around his neck, a manila folder in his left hand thick enough to prop open a door. Ted sat down across from Craig. He didn't offer a handshake. He didn't offer water. He opened the folder and spread its contents across the table like a dealer laying out cards. Printed screenshots, timestamps, witness statements, frame-by-frame stills from the aircraft's onboard security camera, and 2 video files, one from Priscilla's phone, one from Eleanor Voss, already downloaded and logged as evidence. Craig stared at the photos. One showed him hanging the out-of-order sign. Another showed him engaging the external lock. A third caught his face mid-sentence through the lavatory door, mouth open, smirking. He tried his first excuse. I was following security protocol. She was non-compliant.
Ted slid a printed copy of Skyline Atlantic's cabin security protocol across the table.
Show me where it says a crew member can lock a passenger inside a lavatory without captain authorization. Craig didn't touch the document. Second excuse. She was being aggressive. I felt threatened. Ted pulled up Denise Lawson's written statement on his tablet and turned the screen toward Craig. Every line was specific. Times, quotes, descriptions. Denise had written 3 full pages. At the bottom, she'd signed and dated it in blue ink. Your colleague says Ms. Adams was seated, calm, and reading a tablet for the duration of the pre-departure period. She describes your behavior as, let me find the exact word. Ted adjusted his glasses. Targeted. Craig shifted in his chair. The metal legs scraped the concrete floor. Third excuse. The big one. I've been with this airline 18 years. 18 years, Ted. Not a single disciplinary action on my record. You're going to throw all that away over one misunderstanding? Ted closed the folder. He took off his glasses and set them on the table. Craig, I pulled your file this morning. 6 complaints in 4 years, all from passengers of color. All dismissed by your former supervisor, Harold Dunn. I've got emails between you and Harold discussing how to, and I'm quoting here, make these things go away. You don't have a clean record. You have a buried one. And as of today, it's not buried anymore. Craig's face lost its last trace of color. His hands went flat on the table. His wedding ring clicked against the metal surface. You're done, Craig. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending a full investigation. Your crew badge and airport credentials, hand them over. Now. Craig reached for his lanyard. His fingers fumbled with the clasp. The same fingers that locked that bathroom door with such confidence an hour ago. He slid the badge across the table. It made a small, pathetic sound against the metal. Ted collected it without looking at him. He stood up, tucked the folder under his arm, and walked to the door. Don't leave town, Craig. You'll be hearing from legal. The door closed. The red light on the camera kept watching. Craig sat alone in that gray room and stared at the empty table where his badge used to be. Meanwhile, 3 floors up, in the Skyline Atlantic Executive Lounge, Priscilla Adams was sitting in a leather chair by the window. She could see the planes on the tarmac, the gate where SA-1164 was still parked, empty, going nowhere. She pulled out her phone and called her daughter. It rang twice. Hey, Mom, how was the flight? Priscilla's voice cracked. Just barely. Just enough. Baby, Mama had a rough morning, but I handled it. A pause on the other end. Her daughter had heard that voice before, not often, but enough times to know what it meant. You always do, Mom. Priscilla closed her eyes. She pressed the phone against her cheek and let out a breath she'd been holding since that bathroom door clicked shut. She wasn't a superhero. She wasn't invincible. She was a woman who'd spent her whole life being strong because the world never gave her the option to be anything else. Outside the lounge window, another plane lifted off the runway. The engines roared. The ground shook. And somewhere, in a holding room below her feet, a man with no badge was starting to understand what he'd lost. But he didn't know the half of it yet. Because by the time Priscilla finished her coffee, the internet was already on fire. Eleanor Voss posted her video at 11:47 a.m. Central Time. Caption: I just watched a flight attendant lock a black woman in an airplane bathroom and call her a dog. That woman turned out to be his boss. Hashtag Skyline Atlantic. Hashtag Justice in the Air. By noon, it had 200,000 views. By 2 p.m., it crossed 1 million. By dinner time, every major news outlet in America had the story. The video was 93 seconds long. It started with Craig hanging the out of order sign. It caught the click of the external lock. It picked up his voice through the door. Sit. Stay. Good girl. Clear as a church bell on a Sunday morning. And it ended with Priscilla stepping out of that lavatory, blazer straight,
eyes red, voice steady as steel. 93 seconds. That's all it took to end a man's career and start a national conversation. The hashtag Unlock Justice started trending by 3 p.m. By midnight, it was the #1 trend in the United States. Passengers from the flight started posting their own footage. The military officer in row 5 uploaded a 2-minute clip showing Craig searching Priscilla's bag, pulling items out one by one, while every white passenger's luggage sat untouched overhead. The businessman in 3B posted a statement on social media admitting he watched the whole thing and said nothing. "I'm ashamed," he wrote. "I sat one seat away and I didn't open my mouth. That's on me." But the internet wasn't done. It was just getting warmed up. Within 48 hours, Skyline Atlantic's internal investigation blew the lid off something much bigger than one bad flight. Ted Harmon assembled a review team, 3 HR investigators, 1 outside counsel, full access to crew records, complaint logs, and internal communications going back 5 years. What they found made the bathroom incident look like the tip of an iceberg. Craig Whitmore had 6 formal complaints on file, all from passengers of color. The first was from a black businessman 3 years ago who said Craig refused to serve him a drink in first class and told him the bar was for paying customers, even though the man had a full fare ticket. The second was from a Latina mother who said Craig made her move her child to economy because the child was making too much noise, while a white toddler 2 rows ahead screamed through the entire flight without a word from Craig. Complaint 3, Complaint 4, Complaint 5, Complaint 6. Different flights, different dates, different passengers. Same pattern. Every single one. A person of color singled out, humiliated, or denied service. And every single one ended the same way. Dismissed. Filed away. Case closed. No action taken. The man who closed every single one of those cases? Harold Dunn. Craig's former supervisor. His golf buddy, his Friday night poker partner, the man who retired last year with a full pension and a plaque on the wall that said, "Excellence in Crew Leadership." The investigators pulled email chains between Craig and Harold going back 4 years. In one, Craig wrote, "Got another one today. Some woman in 14C thinks she's Rosa Parks. Handle it?" Harold replied 40 minutes later, "Done. Filed under resolved. Buy me a beer Friday." Filed under resolved. 4 words that protected a racist for 4 years. Skyline Atlantic's legal team forwarded everything to federal authorities. The FAA moved first. Regional Director Gary Sutton opened a formal review of the airline's crew conduct oversight procedures. The findings were ugly. No independent complaint review board. No mandatory bias training. No escalation protocol when multiple complaints named the same crew member. Sutton issued a public statement. Skyline Atlantic had 90 days to implement systemic reforms or face operational penalties, including potential route suspensions. Then the Department of Justice stepped in. The DOJ's Civil Rights Division launched a preliminary inquiry into Craig Whitmore's conduct. The charge under consideration? Federal civil rights violation. Unlawful restraint of a passenger based on race on a commercial aircraft. A federal offense, not a slap on the wrist, not a written warning. Prison time. Craig hired an attorney, a guy named Brent Foster from a mid-tier firm in Dallas. Foster tried everything. He argued Craig was exercising crew authority in good faith. He argued the lock was a temporary safety measure. He even argued that Craig didn't know Priscilla was black when he locked the door, a claim so ridiculous the judge actually paused, removed his glasses, and stared at Foster for a full 5 seconds before moving on. The evidence was overwhelming. Priscilla's phone footage, Eleanor's video, Denise's written testimony, the aircraft's onboard security camera, the 6 prior complaints, the emails with Harold, Craig's own words, recorded in high definition, played back in a federal courtroom for a judge and gallery to hear. "Sit. Stay. Good girl." The courtroom was silent when that audio played. Craig's attorney put his face in his hands. Craig Whitmore was convicted on 2 counts: unlawful restraint, filing a false security report for lying to Captain Briggs about Priscilla being erratic and aggressive when she was neither. The judge sentenced him to 14 months in federal custody. He was permanently barred from working in commercial aviation. His 18-year career didn't end with retirement. It ended with a mugshot. Harold Dunn didn't escape either. The DOJ charged him with obstruction for systematically suppressing the 6 prior complaints. Harold's attorney tried to argue he was just following internal discretion. The judge didn't buy it. Harold received 18 months of probation, a $50,000 fine, and the kind of public humiliation that follows a man to his grave. His plaque was removed from the Skyline Atlantic offices the same week. Priscilla Adams stood at a podium in Washington, D.C. 3 weeks later. The press conference that was supposed to be a quiet introduction of a new COO became something else entirely. Every major network was there: cameras, microphones, flashbulbs popping like fireworks. She adjusted the microphone and looked straight into the cameras. "I didn't plan for my introduction to be this way. I wanted my first public act as COO to be about strategy, about growth, about the future of this airline. Instead, it's about a bathroom door." A few quiet laughs from the press gallery. But if my experience, being locked in a lavatory on my own airline, being called a dog by my own employee, if that experience can change how this company and this industry treats every single passenger who walks down that jet bridge, then it was worth every second behind that door. The room erupted in applause. Within 60 days, Skyline Atlantic rolled out mandatory anti-bias training for all cabin crew, an independent complaint review board, a passenger advocacy hotline, and a zero-tolerance policy for discriminatory conduct, with teeth. Real teeth. Not a poster on a break room wall. Other airlines watched. Then they followed. 3 major carriers announced internal reviews of their own complaint systems within the month. 1 bathroom door, 1 phone call, 1 woman who refused to disappear, and an entire industry started listening. So where are they now? Let me tell you. Priscilla Adams completed her first year as COO of Skyline Atlantic Airlines. Under her leadership, discrimination complaints dropped by 61%. Passenger satisfaction scores among minority travelers hit an all-time high. The independent review board she created handled over 300 cases in its first 12 months, and not a single one was buried, dismissed, or filed under resolved without investigation. She received the National Aviation Leadership Award at a ceremony in Chicago. When they handed her the trophy, she held it up and said 5 words: "This belongs to every passenger." Her daughter watched from the front row, crying, smiling, both at the same time. Denise Lawson, the junior flight attendant who shook in her shoes but told the truth anyway, was promoted to cabin crew lead within 6 months. Skyline Atlantic created a new crew integrity program, and they asked Denise to run it. She now trains new flight attendants on how to speak up when something is wrong, how to find your voice when the person above you is telling you to shut it. In her first training session, she told a room of 30 new hires, "I was terrified that day. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. But I learned something. Your silence doesn't protect you. It protects the person doing the harm." Every seat in that room was full. Nobody looked at their phone. Eleanor Voss, the retired attorney in 3C who hit record when nobody else would, became an advisory board member for a national passengers' rights organization. She now consults with airlines on civil rights compliance. She still flies first class,
And every time she boards, she checks the lavatory locks. Old habits. Captain Roland Briggs received a formal commendation from Skyline Atlantic for his handling of the situation. He told a reporter afterward, "I've been flying for 30 years. I've dealt with weather, mechanical failure, medical emergencies. But I never had a crew member lie to my face about a passenger. That shook me more than any turbulence I've ever flown through." He retired the following spring. Full honors. And Craig Whitmore? Craig served his 14 months, federal facility in East Texas. No gold wings, no first-class cabin, no passengers to command. Just a cell, a schedule, and a lot of time to think about the door he locked and the words he said through it. When he got out, he tried to get back into aviation. Every airline rejected him. His name was flagged in the FAA database, permanently barred. He applied for ground crew positions, baggage handling, gate operations. Every application came back the same way. Declined. A local news station in Dallas caught up with him 6 months after his release. They asked if he had anything to say. He sat in a plastic chair on his front porch, squinting against the afternoon sun. He looked 10 years older. His hands fidgeted in his lap. "I made mistakes," he said. "Things got out of hand." The reporter asked if he wanted to apologize to Priscilla Adams directly. Craig paused, looked at the camera, looked away. "I think enough has been said." That was it. No apology, no accountability, no understanding of what he did or why it mattered. Just a man sitting on a porch, still convinced the world was unfair. To him. Some people change. Some people just get quieter. So here's my question for you. If you were on that plane, if you heard someone banging on that door and a crew member in a pressed uniform told you it was handled, would you have sat back down? Or would you have been an Eleanor? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear it. And if this story hit you somewhere real, if it made you angry, or made you think, or made you look at the world a little differently, smash that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Because stories like this, they don't just entertain. They remind us that silence is a choice, and so is justice.
Chris sat on that porch, looked at the camera, and said, "I think enough has been said. No apology. 18 years in the air, and he still couldn't see what he did wrong. But here's what I keep coming back to. Craig didn't lose everything because of one phone call. He lost everything because 3 women, in 3 different seats, made 3 different choices. Priscilla chose dignity. 8 minutes and 40 seconds locked in that bathroom, and she got down, straightened her blazer, and asked for his name. Denise chose truth, hesitating, brand new on the job, 18 years of seniority, staring her down, and she still spoke up. Eleanor chose witness. She didn't say a word. She's a hit record. None of them knew each other, but each one decided silence wasn't something they could live with, and that changed everything. And that brings me to you, because we all been on that plane when your uniform say it's handled. Do you believe the uniform, or do you believe the banging on the door? What kind of person are you when nobody knows your name? Drop your answer in the comments. I read everyone. If this story hit you somewhere real, like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you haven't not, because silence is a choice, and so is justice.